you're going to learn. I'm sure that you're going to leave out here wanting more. So we will certainly answer that call. We're going to continue to work together to get our persons very much aware of mental health in our community. So without further ado, it is also my distinguished pleasure to introduce our speaker. Now, I have to read from this tiny screen, so y'all bear with me. Even though I just want to say, just welcome my friend. But I'll pay some respect and give some more information. Jason has completed two earned doctoral degrees, one with mental health as his area of conceptualization, and a doctorate in leadership and administration from regionally and nationally accredited agencies. Dr. Jason is a certified family therapist, certified human behavior specialist, and a certified John. Now, Dr. Jason has been involved in ministry, civic ministry, and social ministries, and he
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm first. Secondly, I want. But the rest of us, isn't this a beautiful? Probably what you did here, but with some of this for us tonight, free of charge. By the way. Be so pass. Wink, wink. Kidding. And first is I want suicide. Very interactive. Those of you who saw it online. How do you make it like that online even? We did this training about a month ago virtually, and we had it where it was interactive that way as well. So again, if you're listening, say I am. All right, it's going to be engaging as well. So I'm a mover. One of my mentors, she always says, you move around because you make people nervous. That's how you know if they're listening to you. Right? Good. All right, so first question. What is your perspective on suicide? Anyone? Just jump up and say it. I might need a mic runner. Go ahead. Okay.
The limit for that person.
What's your thoughts? Someone for some. The short. My clicker's not. Might have to click for me. Is a suicide or trained. It's a little bit more than that. But here's the deal. How many of you know the story of the Good Samaritan? It's similar to that. You will be able to walk away from here and be some. See someone that might be walking through. The first thing you say is not, "Child, what you trying to kill yourself for? You crazy?" Jump there and then go do what you got to do. That's what you're supposed to. We shift the paradigm in our culture and context. Let me share something with you. Do you believe, in regards to suicide, you believe that, or you think it's just something they talk about and then it goes away? We are in dire issue in regards to suicide. Samaritan, who you can reach and support people in that way. All right? So you're going to hear, let me give you, I try to give my objectives. Those of you students, you know, try to give my objectives at the beginning. The goal of this is for you to leave saying, you know what, I'm more aware of what suicide is, who do I contact, what are some of the warning signs, and what are some basic things right back in, and we're going to get going. Is there a way? Can I play it, or you play it back there? Okay. Yeah. All right. While he does that, I get. In this room, I'm gonna make you very. In this room, what do you think the statistics of someone that's in this room right now that may have had the thought of suicide? Wait, say that again. I heard. Said 1 out of 2. Someone else said something. 9 out of 10. That's a big number. Who said that? That's a big number. 9 out of 10. Right, right. I'm just acknowledging your number. 5 out of 3 out of 5. Usually, from reading research, statistics would tell you that in a room full of people like this, 1 out of every 3 persons will either thought about suicide or attempted it. Now watch this. Your number doesn't mean anything to you. Say it with me. My number doesn't mean anything to me. Do you mind coming over here? Because I'm gonna sign you off. I'm gonna put you in groups. But you're gonna get. Watch this. Fast, I know you gotta go. So 1. Yeah, go this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, seat. You must sit in your seat and they sit in your seat. Like they baptized in vinegar. I know I brought you a little closer, but that's okay. It's going to make some sense in a minute. All right. So, we just sounded off 1, 2, 3. Of every person that has the now. In this room, they stood up and they said something. And you unintentional connection with them. The person sitting in row 3 are not just someone who is a bum who just standing on the side. They belong to someone. One of them might have committed suicide. What would you say to them? Exactly. You can't be talking about, oh, thought she got it all together. She got that big old house out West Ridge, driving that nice car. She married that man with all that money. No way. Got it. That you could be a good Samaritan. So let's go and we'll come with the two definition of they say that again? Say that loud.
They committed suicide.
Remember that phrase. We're going to come back to that. What else do you hear? Say it again.
They committed suicide.
They committed suicide. We're going to talk about the language of suicide, okay? Here's another thing I want you to hear. What a suicide attempt is. A suicide attempt is when people harm themselves with the intent to end their lives, do not die because of their actions. There's a difference between suicide and a suicidal attempt. Does that make sense? What about the warning signs? I know some of you say, that's why I'm here. What are the warning signs? Now that's a which we use it. We'll come back to that. We got to deal with that language. I'm tired. Can't take it anymore. What can I do?
I can't take it anymore.
Okay?
People is like, they just keep coming after me, or she just keep coming after me,
Uh-huh.
and I just can't take it. So,
Okay. What are some other warning signs?
sorry, when a person exudes sadness for a period of time and just show signs of happiness, decision to end and then they
loved ones that could potentially save their lives. Leah Cooper has more in this next report.
There's been an increase in suicide since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. This according to psychologist and president of the Bahamas Psychological Association, Dr. Wendy Fernander. The appeals of two elections the last few days here in the capital,
which would have put us in the Bahamas to about 38% an increase to us. That this is worrisome, that attention need to be paid to this issue in our country.
And if you suspect one of your loved ones is contemplating taking their own life, Dr. Fernander pointed to these characteristics.
Someone who was very outgoing and gregarious and mingling in society, and they become very withdrawn, or someone so also someone who suddenly begins to seemingly lack interest and they give away their things. So if they had something that they cherish, start those things away. These are some of the things that indicate to us that this person may be contemplating suicide.
Now I'm standing in the area where the lifeless body of a man was found hanging from this very tree over the weekend. And according to the most recent study on suicide here in the Bahamas, it's a major preventable public health issue. Now, in light of this, Dr. Fernander outlines how we can save a life.
Oftentimes what happens is people tend to joke about it and say, oh, he's not serious. But what we can do is, once we see something like this, it is important that we see people with depression and feel down, lack of energy, and like I said, not sleeping well or sleeping too much. What we can do is immediately try and ensure that that person gets help and not dismiss the oftentimes push it aside and serious, but just get the person, be more sensitive, be compassionate, get the person help, and be supportive.
If you or your loved ones are experiencing suicidal thoughts, Dr. Fernandez advising you to call or WhatsApp the mental health hotline at 816-3799. That's 816-3799. Leah Cooper, Eyewitness News.
Now, Dr. Fernanda did a good job giving us things to look for. She focused on certain diagnoses that accompany people who usually have suicide. And I think what I was saying was sometimes as well, mood, like the colloquial saying is, that come out of nowhere. What some So here's some I want to point out to you. So agitated, someone that they go from happy, and then all of a sudden they start to be agitated by every little thing. You drop the pen. What you drop that pen for? You know what I'm talking about? Where their mood just switch, and they move from being in a good mood to a bad mood. And again, I'm trying not to give you too much clinical. That's one thing I want to remind you of. Here's another one. I know it's hot. People say, oh, I'm tired. Watch your family and friends that sleep too much. Now y'all looking at me like, Doc, what is sleep too much? There's no such thing as sleeping too much. But if they have a shift in their mood and all of a sudden they're sleeping a lot, that's something to be concerned about. Here's another one I want you to watch for. Someone that suddenly becomes happy and jovial. Now I know we pray for our family and friends to be happy. But when there's a switch like that, we always notice it when there's a switch when it's negative. But when it's switched and it's on the positive side, be concerned. I'm not telling you you are equipped to diagnose someone, but that's something to watch. Y'all listening to me? Okay. Here's another one. I want to re-emphasize. We hear this one a lot. Talking about feeling hopeless or having no purpose or reason to live. Like you said. When you hear that, that's usually a red flag. Like they are literally saying, hey, I need you to help me. I need you to get me to the right help. Okay? All right. Any other thoughts, questions on this? Here's another thing I want to tell you as parents, aunts, uncles. Check them kids' phones. If you see them Googling things on how to kill yourself, how to hang yourself, how to drink poison, how to make homemade poison. I had a client. That's how we found out. Like you said, straight A student, we had no idea. She was coming for counseling because she was having some issues in school with her peers. And mom went on her phone and said, Doc, I found something that's disturbing. She looked up how many pills she can take of regular OTC, over-the-counter pills, that she can end her life. And that's how we found out that she was trying to consider the attempt. And when we approached her about it, we made some other things, did some other things, and we had her hospitalized just for a season until she can get some help for that. Parents, if you give your kids phones, if you think they're reading the Bible app on that, I got a bridge I want to sell you. These kids on these phones, our daughter does not have one. I have a 13-year-old, she does not have a phone. And people say, oh, you know, even my mom, who didn't allow me to have one. Is this mic on? She knocks, for some reason, now let me get on a rant. When you become grandparents, y'all has changed. Let me turn around and look at my screen for y'all. Y'all throw something at me. All right, let's go to the next one. So we got to think about understanding the risk factors and how some things. So for example, what are some things you can think of without looking at the screen that can impact people? Let me change it. That leads them to this place. What are some risk factors? What are some things you think can cause people to get to this place? Trauma that occurred in their life. Bully or severe harassment. Financial loss. Sexual abuse. The propensity to do it. Loss of a loved one. Bullying someone, yes, someone else. Let's look at some of them. All right. Family history of suicide. That's one. Loss of money, you guys said that. History of trauma and abuse, some of you said that. Death or terminal illness of a loved one. Loss of health. Here's what I've been seeing in my practice a lot. A lot of men who either retired or lost their job. They would say to me, Doc, I'm embarrassed to tell you this, but I thought about ending my life. And then I just let them talk. And they tell me, you know I served my time, I retired, but I feel useless. I'm home all day, doing nothing. My wife's still working. For a lot of people, what they do becomes who they are. And when they lose that, it pushes them to a place where they could be at risk. So think about these swings when you're thinking about what some of the signs were. Okay? Here's another one that we don't want to talk about, but I want to talk about it in the house of the Lord. Pastor Angela ain't in here, right? Okay. I'll still talk about it if she's here. I guess I'm going to say it. It's up there. Questioning their sexual identity. This is something we like to duck and dodge. But this thing is becoming a reality. I am not saying I'm endorsing that. What I'm telling you is what some risk factors are in our kids and some of our adults. When they are in that place, they're making those questions of themselves and then dealing with the societal pressure of all of that. That's been something that's been reoccurring among our kids. Okay? And the last thing I'll say is recent loss of a significant relationship. Have you all been hearing some of the voice notes? Some of these people who've been in relationships? Again, people become attached to these things and it becomes who they are. So these are some risk factors. Okay? We have another one.
Meantime, September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and efforts to save lives remains the same. Now, but according to mental health physician Dr. Sean Knowles of the Emmanuel Medical Center, a Stubbs survey conducted here in the Bahamas in 2018 revealed that men have a higher success rate in committing suicides over women, with a ratio of about 2 to 4 females to 1 male.
We recognized that there were up to 17,000 Bahamians, 18 and over, who thought about suicide, and that would have been before Hurricane Dorian and before the COVID pandemic. And so we really need a part 2 of that STEP survey to get a really better understanding of what our people are going through. Last year, so many suicides, and the number 1 rate was by hanging. If we were following them, majority of them, shouldn't surprise you, were men.
Fortunately, there's been little to no reported cases of suicides or attempted suicides in the Bahamas recently, but the contributing factors that drive a person to commit the act still lingers. The causes, though, an untreated mental illness, emotional, financial, and family stress. For Dr. Knowles, what's more alarming is the increase in the amount of young people thinking about it.
As long as you are alive, you're going to be faced with stress and issues. And so parents, grandparents, just because a child is not working and putting groceries in the house or paying the electric bills does not mean that he or she does not have problems, all right? Just take a look in the newspaper to see what's happening in some of our schools. And so with that, bullying is high on the list. for what's taking place that a lot of our young people are dealing with, both in public sectors and private sectors.
In case you missed the news or want to stay ahead, subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Meantime, September is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and efforts to save lives remains the same. Now, but according to mental health physician Dr. Sean Knowles of the Emmanuel.
If you can go in the back. We're going to do our first breakout. I want you to, in your groups, discuss, you can see it, some of the past and present Afro-Caribbean social and cultural factors regarding suicide. What are the questions? 1, make a list of past social and cultural norms regarding suicide. Number 2, make a list of past cultural factors regarding suicide. What am I asking you? What are some cultural things that when you think about us as black Afro-Caribs, one of the things I run into all the time is black people don't kill themselves. That's what we used to say. That's what I heard growing up. Child, we don't do that. That's for them white people. Them is kill themselves. Y'all remember hearing that growing up? And now it's in our face. So that's an example. Past social and cultural factor. Past social factor. Here's a cultural factor. Anyone can think of you? Ain't that her ma tell her in a place where we that is, those are some things to think about. So get in your groups. Let's talk about those. You got 3 minutes to do. You're going to have to inconvenience yourself, sit in the front. Let's go.
I feel as though that only things such as like prayer or believing that you'll be okay is okay, rather than combining it. And then there's a huge stigma attached to mental disorders. If you even talk about it, you're just crazy, and you're kind of physical ailment. There's no issue. It's like a non-issue, you know.
Good. Thank you, Group 1. Group 2. Who wants to be the spokeslady? Oh, I was going to say, you pointing at her, she pointing at you.
Okay, so culturally, like Group 1, we discuss how they say we're going to pray for you. We do live in a society where they train us that we get help inside. So the point is, persons aren't taught to go get help. So that's a barrier you have to break. They say things like, if a person do try to confide in you, you have to be strong. So a person battling with the thoughts, then it doesn't help to write out and tell them that they're being weak. But the word strong does come in there because they say, pray, God, you, like, I'm not saying change work, but like, you got to do something. And then they don't take it seriously. Last resort. And at some point, listening to the signs, when they finally do it, it's the only time a person would say they missed. So that's become a norm. First time I've heard it, only certain families struggle with. I found that when I went into nursing school, my preceptor said there's a very thin line. Take the opportunity. I'm sorry. My name is Maria Butler, and I'm a TCN. I worked on the island for about 5 years. I recently moved back. I was also in the training, same as the Harvest and the lady over there. So I took this opportunity for recertification. Say, like, when we were training people outpatient, so most people expect these.
That we said, but also the same as that we based on the stigma that Black people do not have mental health issues. That's one of the popular ones I've heard before. We discussed that a person's issues, and of course therapy is considered a white people thing. Having mental health issues can be regarded as the C word, crazy. And then other cultural factors that we looked at, that could be autism in the Bahamas as well, with them suppressing any issues they have, or isolation and whatnot. So a lot of the issues that they have to themselves.
All right, group 3, if y'all would come back up, you can stay in the 2 sections you're at, because we can keep going. We're going to go back to breakout. We're going to have another breakout. So let me ask you this. How many of you heard the comment, "Child, she must have got the pink slip"? I know y'all looking at me like I was baptizing. Y'all hear that before? Oh. I know it's old school, but it used to be said. And what I'm saying to you is, that's what I was meaning when we talk about social cultural norms, where we would see things. So for example, you're looking at someone, mental illness has been something that has been in my family from my great-grandparents, okay? To now, if you traverse the Grove area, 2nd Street, or where First Baptist is, what y'all need to do with him. We were that family that was proud, who know how to, and boom, mental illness. Think of how we deal with this. You as an individual have to be aware of what, by and with when it comes to the social and cultural. You're very intentional. As you experience this or may even engage someone that may be on the brink of this, watch your personal perspective, what you taught or heard from the cultural norms. Right, what you say, it's old, but I said let's go to the next slide. All right. Here is the myth. Those who talk about suicide don't do it. That's a myth or a fact? The fact is, most people who either attempt or commit or engage, we're going to talk about language, they usually follow through with it. Okay? Here's another one. If a person is really intent on killing themselves, there is nothing anyone can do to stop it. That's a myth. Huh? Say that again? Yeah. Well, let's listen to it. Even the most severely depressed person has mixed feelings and are ambivalent about dying. Most people just want to end. Meeting with when you keep digging, if you're a skilled clinician, you don't focus on the fact that they want to end their life. You try to figure out what is the underlying thing they're trying to escape from. Are you following me? Now, I told you I wear two hats. When we come to church, if you go to church, some to hear a word from God. Boy, Pastor, you spoke to me today because that's that escape that you got from that message that you gave. If y'all think I ain't picked the woman them in here. No, go.
So, here's a question. Says suicide. And to someone who ain't than I am, that I might feel because I talk about it.
A little bit about, with the time we have. Someone you have noticed have a warning sign on a risk factor, they probably thought about suicide already. Prevention is business. Someone say, it's my business. And anyone can help prevent the tragedy of suicide. To address that, because I believe our society has become so individualistic, we don't even pay attention. I remember viewing news and things like now when you know, child, that's something. Community mindset. All right, now let's go to the next one. This is what I want to make sure, especially for our context and culture. Do you mind going to that next slide for me? Suicide language. All right, the first one, the next, yeah, okay. Died by suicide is what we should say instead of committed or completed suicide. And we're going to talk a little bit about this. Died by suicide, suicide by death, rather than a successful attempt. Person living with thoughts of suicide, rather than suicide ideator or attempter. Okay? Now, instead of saying, oh yeah, they was manipulative, they was crying for help, they had suicidal gestures, we need to describe the behavior. So for example, Johnny was such a happy person, and all of a sudden Johnny started withdrawing and started being going into himself and not connecting with people. Does that make sense? Okay? The other one is working with someone in crisis, dealing with suicide process. The line. The biggest pet peeve of mine is committed suicide. Because when you say that, you imply that someone was successful at something, that they were committed to something and that they followed it through. You're saying, yeah, well, doc, isn't that what it is? Yes, but for the family hearing that, you could inflict more trauma. Child, she herself, media, friends, and you got to be careful with. And if you notice, some of them have done using the more appropriate language. Because what you hear impacts what you feel. Y'all listening to me?
That makes a lot of sense, because I was about to ask why we can't say committed or completed, and that's the incorrect thing. And I'm realizing that verbiage is incorrect, because if you say you committed suicide, that leads people to have this like common notion that for doing this act and completing it and leaving people. So if you die by suicide, you were a victim to suicide, rather than you yourself put it in your mind to do this and now you've killed yourself, you know, and it's really insensitive, you know.
Mm-hmm. All right, someone else. Okay, so let's watch this story real quick. Let's see if I can do it. Of a guy sharing his story. You got it.
I didn't know locking something up would make all the difference. I knew she was going through something.
How did you know? It did. You saved her life.
All right, we'll stay in our groups and engage. 5 minutes. What you can do, what next steps would you take and why? And basically, what you can do, what next steps, take about 5 minutes, okay? Take about 5 minutes on this. Let's make it succinct as possible, and we're going to come back together, okay? With your groups. advantage back there, but let's go.
Good evening, everyone. Whilst you were discussing what would you say and do and what next steps would take, and example. As a teacher, I came across a few of my students who were suicidal. And in the midst of talking to them and with them, to space, comfortable space for them so that when they talk, they won't be afraid to share whatever it is that they needed to share. Not only that, I tried to be as relatable as possible, no judgment, none whatsoever. And I realized that at the end of the day, when they were finished talking to me, I made it clear to them that this information is so critical that you've said to me. And because I love you so much, I just can't keep this to myself. We have to get you some help. So I was able to refer her to the guidance counselor, who afterwards was able to get in the needed persons that needed to contact and to speak with that particular child. And the guidance counselor said at that time, I've known this particular child, her G, you know, seen it drop at her G. And so, yeah, I was able to speak with the guidance counselor, able to reach help for her. And another thing is, so whenever I, what's going on in your life? The door is open. Myself down or burning, needs someone to talk to, that there's that open door.
Good, good. Thank you, Group 3. Group 2.
Okay, so we went over a scenario with person. Oh, you can hear me now? Yeah. So, express feeling like they want to end it all because of losing a relationship. So we talked about being physically for the person. The first I'm not let them alone them and why not passing judgment. At this point, we need to get you some help. And so extending the outside, because, you know, a person can be able to fix it, but you have to, now I need the help that you need. Or to avoid hesitation, it should sound like something they want to do. So we're not throwing it on them. And then, well, bringing it to the Bahamas, of course, if it's an adult, we go through, oh Lord, what is this place name up the road? CCAC, social service, crisis center, did I miss one? Yeah.
Thank you. What our group was saying that we know might have or the facing. vulnerable with the people they trust and love. So if you are that ear for them, that'll definitely happen. And to make it again less daunting, if you get to the level you could refer them to a therapist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or what I felt like what we could do is, I know there are some doctors who have free group therapy, which is less daunting. You can go with them, and everyone in the free space talks about their problems, and all their problems could be talked about in this non-judgmental, safe space that you don't even have to pay for. And one, for instance, is the family with Dr. Allen that happens in the Crisis Center and Kemp Road Church. So that's a free opportunity there. So
Good. All great things. I think all of you hit the nail on the head with these. And the thing is, what I tell people, I want you to say this with me. It's three words. Refer, refer, refer. Okay? Because the goal is you're not the person that's the trained person to help with the details of it. You're that good Samaritan to offer the air and the ability to refer them. Okay? To get them to help. That's why the last question was, who do you call? Who do you connect them with? Group 2 said it perfect. If they're adult, there's community, and you'll see that on the last slide. Community Counseling Assessment Center. If they're a child, there's, with the new law, I don't know, Dr. CCHC as well. Okay. I don't know if they changed it with the new law, but that's what. So let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's get into what can you do. All right, let's go to that slide that says suicide first aid, and the next one, learn. So the information I'm about to share with you is to help you recognize when someone may be at risk for suicide and how you can connect them with immediate help. Okay? Now, the acronym for this model that I've been trained in is called LEARN. Okay? This is to help you learn if they're considering suicide to take the early steps of what to do. All right, the first thing is the letter L. So it's from the acronym LEARN. L. L means look for signs. Okay? Look for signs. All right? If you see them talking, joking, we talked about this. I'm not going to stay on it too long. When they're isolating themselves from you or family, friends, changes in their personality, changes in the outlook of life, feeling hopeless. L, look for signs. E, empathize and listen. Oh, sorry. This group 2 said that. You are not there to be judge and jury. That's why I said you have to be very intentional how your cultural, social, religious norms impact you as a good Samaritan. Your job is not there to watch them putting their life at danger to be the judge and jury. The last thing someone who's thinking about committing suicide wants to hear is your religious rant about them going to hell. Take that from a pastor. That's the last thing they want to hear from you. You need to empathize and listen. Someone say that. Empathize and listen. I'm concerned about you. You don't seem like your usual self. What's going on? How do you show empathy? You listen with compassion. Those of you who are people of faith, that's the number one thing Jesus did. He listened to people with compassion. And show them you care by giving your full attention. That's not the time for you to be on your phone. If you're listening, say, I am. Don't judge. Avoid fixing their problems. Okay? Use your own words to reflect back what they have told you. I'm really sorry to hear what you're going through this. I really appreciate you telling me that. Just listen. Let's go to the next one. A, ask directly about suicide. Now, this could be where people could get a little antsy and feel like, oh, doc, this is getting out of my scope. But this is what I'm going to give it to you. Asking us about suicide will not plant the idea in someone's mind if that's where you're meeting them at. How do you ask them directly and calmly? Whatever their name is. Susan, are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself? Or ask by mentioning things you heard them say. Sometimes when people are struggling with fears about their future, suffering a major loss, all those things right there. Be prepared to hear
Just
yes.
listen.
Let's go to the next one. Be prepared to hear yes. Let me get through this. R, remove the dangers. This is very important. Someone in group 2 said, hey, you might go to be present. If you go present and they got all the knives in the kitchen, sitting right by the knives, no amount of listening or trying to follow this gonna prevent. First thing you got to do, Susan, let's go out here in the living room. Come. Don't mention them knives. Don't say nothing but the knives. Just say, listen, I came to be with you. Let's go sit on the couch. Or you show up and they have pills. Don't sit on the bed with them with the pills next to you. Are y'all listening to me? Take them out that room. Nah, I tell you, drag them out. But tell them, say, can we go on the couch and sit down? Remove them from all possible dangers. Okay? Let's go to the next one. And next steps. Take action immediately. Okay? Now, I want to be very intentional with this one. This is where, after you've done all those other things, what is your next step? If you're in the moment where they're listening to you, they've been paying attention, you feel like you've won them over, what's the next thing you're going to do? I want to be very intentional with this one. What's the next thing you're going to do? Huh? That's the call for help. Now, here's why I always encourage people when I do this training. You have to tell them if the situation creates and it cultivates that. If you tell them, some of them may run. You can't control that. But I try to always encourage people is you say, hey, listen, you said it perfect. I don't even want to jack up what you said. But you said something like, I let them know and let them know, hey, we're going to make a call. I'm going to call so-and-so. This is where it gets kind of, I like this word, dicey. Some people in training say, well, you ask them, hey, is it okay that I call? They're not okay. You're asking them to make a decision for their well-being that they didn't make before you got there. That's my stance. So it's kind of dicey. You have to be very discerning and trying to figure out where are they. So I usually don't recommend you ask them. I recommend you kindly tell them, because I care about you so much, I'm going to try to see how I can help you and get people who are more skilled than me to help you. That's a nice way of saying, child, I don't care what you say. I calling them for you. The bus coming for you right now. That's not the way to do it. Hold it. We come back to that. Okay? But you kindly tell them, hey, listen, I'm so glad you asked me to come over here. I'm not as skilled in this. I want to reach out to someone who can help us better with this. And get yourself immersed into it too a little bit. Get us some help. Okay? All right? And then I want you to know this. I really believe that if you believe and trust the people who are trained, you'll be more apt to do it. A lot of times people don't call certain people because they don't think they can do it. Especially when this issue comes with mental health. That's what I'm talking about. You have trained clinical psychologists, counselors, therapists in this country that are trained to do this stuff. Someone break their leg, you don't say, but child, I don't know. You call 911, right? And you don't know who blessing come into your house. But you trust that those EMTs are trained. The same difference. You call that BPA number, you call that crisis hotline. You have to be believing that on the other side of that will be trained people. And that's Dr. Bethel, who's over the training component for Bahamas Psychological Association. They're very intentional, meticulous. Even this training, we had to be very intentional that you know that our goal is to make sure have the level of training and excellence where it needs to be. All right? Let me give you some resources, then I want to go back to your comments. I want to address one thing, and then we're going to wrap this thing up. All right? Go to those apps. Let me give you some free resources. Someone say, nothing in life is free. That's not true. All right. First app is a safety plan app. Again, this is for the trained folks, so some of you students, this is for you. There's one called the Talk, They Hear You. That one has a lot of resources on it that you could do. This one is good for trainings and other things you want to go. It's called the Suicide Prevention app. And I'll leave that up there. And then the Samsung app, the Suicide Safe, it's a mobile app for people who do this. Let me go back to one thing, and I want to come back to your comments. So Dr. Bethel asked a question that's very important. What do you do if you were helping someone and they follow through with the suicide? One of the things that's out there is we call survivor's guilt. Survivor's guilt. Therapists deal with it, psychologists deal with it. As a good Samaritan, you may have to deal with it. Oh, I remember I helped her. I was the one who called BPA, and then you see her on the news. At the end of the day, you have to realize you only can do what you can do. You cannot carry the weight and bear the burden of the decision and the choice someone makes. Another phrase is called the savior syndrome. You ever heard that phrase? People feel like, I'm supposed to be the savior. I'm trained. I'm Dr. So-and-so. How many of you have ever had a surgery before? Surgery. Okay. One of the things they make you sign, I don't know if they do in the Bahamas, or tell you is, here's the likelihood of this procedure that we're going to do. And if you had to have anesthesia, they have to tell you the risk of anesthesia. Right? But you lay your happy self right down there. And you sign that thing. And because you're thinking about what the result is going to be, right? Right? So, the same thing in the helping profession. Our goal is not to be saviors. Doctors aren't saviors. I know we have this thing in our mind that we think, oh, if you go to this doctor, you know it's going to be good. And don't let that doctor who had a track record of every time they perform a certain surgery, it went well and one mishap happened. You have to realize you cannot take that on. We are not saviors. All right? Dr. Bethel, did I do that justice? All right. All right, we had a comment here first, and then there, and then I want to open for questions for 5 minutes.
I was just going to ask, directly asking them if they have thought about committing suicide, or are you having thoughts of killing yourself? Do you feel as though that might be dicey in a way too? Because like, what if that person kind of like isn't comfortable to the point with you, or maybe those type of topics, because of their cultural and social like impact, they don't talk about those things. It kind of like causes someone who actually might be suicidal to like hide more, or like not talk about it more, like hide in the shadows. What do you do then? Like,
good question. But let me challenge you. I could tell you're uncomfortable with it. So if you're uncomfortable with it, don't do it. You can ask them in a different way. But some situations, like I said, you have to be discerning, and you cannot run from it, because the running from it is the thing they've been doing. And so confronting it makes them, you know, the training I've been through before used to tell you, oh, you want to commit suicide? Tell me how. Yeah. All trainings, it was, they need to tell you what the plan was. The question was, do you have a plan? It was, do you feel like committing suicide? Then do you have a plan? And people literally would tell you what their plan was, and then they'd go do it. And so the research has shifted. The University of Wisconsin has shifted the research and say, we don't ask them what the plan is. We say, do you plan to commit suicide? I'm here to be a buffer. We're going to get you help. We're not going into the details of what you plan. You see what I'm saying? You got to be intentional and discerning.
And I think that question brings to light the point, the delineation between someone who's helping someone who's their friend, colleague, family member, as opposed to a trained professional. The trained professional, even though I might be uncomfortable asking, I have to ask you directly. That is absolutely fundamentally important. I've got to ask you. So in your training, you're going to be taught that, but that's beyond the scope of what's here right now. But yes, you have to ask the question.
I know that part of the conversation was why people even consider that, and in trying to assist them with getting help and asking certain questions, I wanted to make mention of sometimes how to suggest that you're going to refer, and that is by saying, I'm able to find you somebody who may be able to help with some of the problems that you have, because again, it's not necessarily wanting to end life, but I have so many challenges and I don't know how to fix them. And then the question I wanted to ask from that, there are two questions. The first one would be persons associated with the different agencies, with the BAP and the CCA, do they offer additional resources, which may include a nutritionist? They may have health challenges or financial matters. They may need to get somebody who is a financial consultant, or family counseling and planning for some of the deeper issues. So are those resources behind the therapy or the referrals available, and without a burden to that person, like, oh yeah, you could do that, but you're gonna have to pay? So is it readily available? And then the second part of the question that I have with regard to prevention, because reaching this point is, with regards to prevention, is what do we do when we notice that persons are on a slow suicide mission? Because not everybody is going to be direct and call you up and say, I am experiencing this crisis at this time. But you will notice certain patterns in their behavior, like addiction and abuse, that is leading them down the road of, I am trying to check out, but I know that if I did this in a direct and immediate manner, it's going to be seen in a negative way, and I don't want to do that. So you have persons that use the drugs, use the alcohol, use the promiscuity, use the dangerous and risky behavior to end their lives, but in a subtle manner.
Yeah. Two great questions. Dr. Bertha, do you mind addressing the first one about the resources and the triaging with the different organizations?
So a part of the role of the counselor, the therapist, is consultation, collaboration, and referral. So there are resources, particularly through CCAC. CCAC is a branch of Sandilands Rehabilitation Center government. So there are resources. The resources might be a referral to social services. So there are resources. Now, I cannot tell you that every single resource that every single person needs is going to be free of charge. I can't tell you that. In fact, I can tell you not everything will be free of charge. Okay? And one of the things there too is helping the person to take responsibility as well. So a lot of times when everything is free, we don't value it and respect it as much. But yes, there are resources there through CCAC, through Bahamas Psychological Association, through Department of Social Services. So yes, and they will make the referrals and try to get assistance for the individual. And a part of the training for therapists as well is to initially go through kind of a checklist to find out, okay, is this a physical problem? Is this mental health? Is this a financial problem? Is this a social problem? So that's actually a part of the training that happens from the very beginning of any treatment sessions. But so the answer is yes, there are resources, and the therapist is going to always try to find the resources that the individual client needs. Yes.
And so, like for example, I have some clients that referred to me from the courts, and one was for anger management. Okay, I had a phone call, initial meeting with him for our initial session, and that turned into his house was one of the homes that got knocked down from being in a shanty town to, and I only picked up it from well, when I leave here, doc, I don't have nowhere to plug my phone in. And then it just blossomed. I just let him talk. And immediately afterwards, I called Dr. Fernand. Called the office. I said, hey guys, I just talked with a client. First of all, it broke my heart, number one. Number two, there's more issues at play here because I could write a letter that could destroy his life, not knowing the whole systemic issue going on of he don't have a house to live in. He's moving from place to place. Oh, and by the way, wink, wink, hush, hush. They rebuilt something on the same land, but they sneaking in to go in there. Don't have power. This is a young man who's working, 19 years old, working. Yes, he might be a foreign national, whatever your beliefs and thoughts on that is. But my role was give him some anger management counseling, and that turned into we need to get you some resources. Y'all following what I'm saying? So I don't just go in and jump in no, I only focus on the anger management. Well, he's going to be angry that I sent a letter because he didn't go through his therapy and counseling, but then I didn't understand the whole systemic issue. Are y'all following what I'm saying? So we are trained to look at the whole thing that's going on, the systemic approach to how this thing is done. And so, yes, and not all the resources. Like with this young man, we still haven't found what the resolve is going to be. Now, one thing with him, he might not have somewhere to live, but he calls me. He wants to do his sessions because he wants to be done with the courts. You know, he makes a way. He'll say, Doc, I'm going to go to McDonald's. I'm going to sit. You mind if I call you from? Do what you got to do. But we're trying to work on getting you connected. I'm using the personal connections to say, hey, can you put him in your apartment for, we're working on that. I'm miles away. Trying to get him in it. And I told him, I can't help your father. I can help you. That's what I was told. And so that's where we are. That's what we're working on. Does it make sense? Any other questions? Group 3, y'all have any questions?
So, let me ask you to remove that thought of slow path. Let's remove that. Because any discussion of suicidality, any thought of suicide, any mention of suicidality there should be an immediacy of action. Does that make sense? So no slow path. Let's remove that. Okay? And one of the major things that the trained therapist would do is we will try to find what are the underlying problems, what are the concerns, and we address those concerns. So when we talk about helping persons with a thought of suicide, it's not just stopping them from committing an act. It's finding out what's the underlying reason and trying to address those reasons and trying to ensure that those reasons are minimized or no longer exist, or the person has the capacity to manage those reasons, and that leads to less thoughts of hopelessness and helplessness. Because remember, those are the two major things with suicidality. I feel hopeless, like I just can't go there, and it's never going to get better. That's hopelessness. Helplessness is I can't do anything about it. So when we address those underlying issues, we address the thoughts of hopelessness and helplessness. Make sense?
We have time for one more question. I want to give it to group 3. Any questions? We have time for one more question.
Good night again. My question is, what I have noticed in the education system, I've come across a number of my students who have now adapted to cutting and elevating it to burning. And, one of their reasons as to why they are cutting or why they are burning is because of some form of sexual trauma that they encountered at an early age from a family member or from someone else. And so I find that some of them are hopeless because they say that, they don't see a reason as to why they are here. Why is it that God allowed it to happen? And can I get your thoughts on that, Doc?
You want to go, Dr. Bethel, or you want me to? Both, okay. I'll say this in regards to the hopelessness and I will tell you what the research is saying, evidence-based first. We have a strong influence of social media on especially that population. Am I blaming that? I'm telling you what the influence is, if I'm understanding your question. And so now the next step for us has to be, how do we manage? There's a difference between managing and control. How do we manage the influence of that on this generation? Let me just put it like that. Because cutting, all that stuff has been around, but the increase of it, especially among the younger, may I ask, what ages do you teach? 10 to 12. 14 to 18. That's that group. And I know we got some 14 to 18 years in the group right now. Now it's the new thing on social, especially TikTok. There's a young lady, she has a TikTok, she's a cutter. And all she talks about is how good it is to release the pain. You don't have to talk to your parents. You don't have to talk. This is what we do. This is what we do. If you go on TikTok, you'll find who I'm talking about. And that's what she's encouraging the kids to do. Now, I think she's been taken down, put back up, taken it down, put it back up. The cutting. Now, the burning thing is I've not heard the burning much, but the body, is it this form? Basically, bodily harm is a new thing now among the younger generation because it's an escape. And the number one thing that we have seen the evidence that's related to why it's happening is social media. Interventions, you didn't ask the intervention question, but I will tell you the biggest thing is we have to figure out how we manage social media by asking our kids the questions. Like I tell you parents, I can say it again, if you think your child is on that phone reading the Bible app, I got a bridge to sell you. I know personally, my daughter had the school computer. She knows. Now listen, she failed all her 3 classes this summer now. But she knew how to break the school's firewall. That men who are in social media engineers to get on TikTok, she had a TikTok account, an Instagram, right under our holy noses. That's why I'm passionate about this, because it hit my front door. And you know how my wife found it? She accidentally left the yellow pad with, say, my TikTok login account. And so we confronted her. And she lied till heaven to hell and told us, I don't have that. So my wife said, let me go on here. She logged in. And if I told you some of the conversations my 13-year-old daughter in this holy house, in my house, if y'all can't tell the passion. And we saw a connection from when that was open to her behavior. And I could show you the accounts, which we reported, called the TBI, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, to tell them these people was messaging my daughter, who she connected with on thing, talking about, because she's had some trauma in her life. We adopted her. And she connected with this girl. This girl started telling all kind of crazy stuff. She got 1.5 million followers. And I don't give a flying flip how much followers you got. I follow Jesus and I can deal with you. And so we saw a direct connection and when we went to the psychologist to tell her, she's like, this makes sense. We kept figuring, when did our daughter shift? When did she change? Right in my holy house, where we have firewalls where she couldn't have it, but she had it on the school computer. And she broke the firewall. And she said, all my friends know how to do it. I said, but you can't read or write, but you could break a firewall? My Bahamian came out. You know, I tell people, parenting these kids today, Dr. Betha, take this mic from me, because you open a can.
Yes. So,
hold on. She says that.
You have so many cases whereas help, you can get the help, but you refuse to get the help because at the end of the day, you're more in tune to what others have to say about you and what's going on in your home. And so a lot of times we do our children a disservice because of our mindset and because of what other people will say to us and about us.
Yeah. I'd like to go back just a little bit to Oh, sorry. I would like to go back just a little bit to reiterate some of the things Dr. Jason would have said just now. So, cutting is not necessarily a sign of any suicidal thoughts. I'll say that again. Cutting and burning is not necessarily a sign of suicidal thoughts. Sorry, thank you, dear. So, most cutters, they cut to release the pain. It's easier to have the physical pain than to have the emotional pain. So that's why persons cut. Okay? If you notice, the most cutters, not the ones who's following the social fad. The social fad will cut anywhere. Okay? They'll cut for people to see. The true cutters, they're going to cut where you are not going to see. Upper thighs, inner thighs, underarms. Because they don't want you to see. They just want the pain to be released. So that physical pain, it's easier to do that. And sometimes they use, even with the burning, sometimes they use a rubber band and just keep on rubbing it on the skin, burn themselves, using lighters, but they're using it in places that persons will not see. Okay? The social fad will cut anywhere. Now, I heard you ask, can it elevate? If I'm cutting my wrist, near my wrist, in my neck, all those critical places, that is a sign of suicidality. Does it make sense? So cutting does not, and I think a lot of times we think when persons cut or burn, they automatically want to die by suicide. That's not necessarily the case. That is often a sign that something else is going on. There's some trauma. And the trauma can be all kinds of things, but there's some trauma in that individual's life. Does it make sense? Okay. Sorry, sir.
Let me close with this. Let me encourage you with this. I can put you on the spot. Okay. I ain't gonna put you on the spot, but let me say this. Let me give you an example just to close on that, and then I'm gonna close. Several months ago, maybe, was it been a year now? There's been an online sensation that went beyond the Bahamas. Yeah, I heard about that one too. That went all across the Bahamas, beyond the Bahamas to the world. And I tell people, all of my teacher friends in Bahamas say, boy, Stubbs, you see that? Thinking, now, if you think they was involved in Get Them Reggie, and they don't know everything else going on, how you think they found? How you think? And I heard Get Them Reggie did it when they were supposed to be in school. What am I saying to you when it comes to suicide? Even among our younger kids, this generation, because this girl, she know how to do a lot of things. Have y'all? First off, let's appreciate her and her help tonight, and Mr. Francis, right, for their help. And she's 14.
Credit to Brother Pedro. No,
Yeah.
sorry. Credit to Brother Julian.
Yeah. She's 14. Now, Pastor Roll, I didn't tell her, I get in trouble with you tonight. I tell her, if y'all don't want her, I'll take her to Memphis with me. But I'm sure you're going to keep her here. What am I saying? This generation, they ain't missing nothing. Okay? I am seeing this age come to my office more and more about committing suicide. I know I use in a language I told you not to use, but their ideation, their ideas of suicide. And do you know what the most of it is? Social pressure. Social pressure. So I want to end on that, with that, thank you, that to let you know, we have to be very intentional to manage. Now, our time is totally gone. I know I hope this gave you an appetite for future trainings that Bahamas Psychological Association is going to do. Please stay connected. Lively Stone, I want to shout you out for being here tonight. We're going to always keep you in our hearts. for helping us this last minute trying to find a space. And I like the space for one. I want to take that home with me, Pastor Roll, especially that one right there. But this is a beautiful space. You'll be hearing more from us from BPA and when to follow you. Dr. Bethel, would you come and do the honors of closing us out? Would you help me welcome one more time Dr. Bethel? She's the charge of training for BPA.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I just want to reiterate a couple of thank yous. Thank you for Dr. Jason being here, traveling all the way from Tennessee, and on his vacation back home, decided to do this work for us. So we truly appreciate you, Dr. Jason. Truly appreciate you. We appreciate being in this house this evening. I do think that this is divine. I don't think that this is by any accident, because I will tell you, Dr. Jason and I were trying for weeks to find a place to come to. And we came here and are welcomed, and we had a wonderful experience here. So, Pastor, thank you again for having us. Thank you again for having us. And most importantly, or additionally as importantly, thank you all for being here. It shows your interest in this country, your interest in people, and your interest in developing yourselves as well. So we thank you for just being here and wanting to learn more so that you can assist more. And lastly, Madam, can I please ask you to close us out in prayer? Because you know what? We start that way and we're going to end that way. Amen? Amen? Is that all right? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Let us bow. Father, in the name of Jesus, we give you thanks this evening for your presence here. We thank you for this sweet, sweet spirit that is in this place, and we know that it is the presence of the Lord. We thank you for our presenter, our doctor. My God, he is so good. He is good. We bless you for him, allowing him to be with us this evening. And Father, we thank you for all those who took the time to be with us, those that are visiting. We thank you. We bless you. We praise you. Now, Lord, as we've come to the close of this wonderful session, I have learned so much, and I know others have learned. And as we go, we want to take this lesson with us and know when to cry for help. In Jesus' name, amen. The Lord go with you.